Have you ever woken up one morning, poured yourself a cup of coffee, and looked at your calendar, only to sigh at how full it is? Another lunch you said yes to out of habit. Another phone call you don't really feel like making. Another gathering where you'll smile and nod, even though your heart longs for something quieter. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. Many of us grew up believing that staying social was the key to happiness. Especially as we get older, we've heard it over and over. Don't isolate yourself. Stay connected. Keep busy. And while those words come from good intentions, they don't always tell the whole story. In fact, what if I told you that after 70, having fewer friends, or even no friends at all, might actually make your life richer? I know, it goes against what we've been taught, but stay with me. Today, we're going to explore why stepping away from the pressure of friendships can open the door to more joy, peace, and freedom than you may have imagined. And if what we talk about today stirs something in you, if it gives you comfort or a new perspective, please consider giving this video a like or sharing a comment. Your story could shine a light for someone else who needs to hear this. So, let's begin. I want you to meet someone, Helen. She's 76 and lives in Seattle. For years, she was the life of every book club, dinner party, and church gathering. Her phone never stopped buzzing. Every week was filled with appointments. On the outside, Helen seemed vibrant and connected, but inside, she was exhausted. One rainy morning, she stood at her window watching raindrops trickle down the glass. A simple question crossed her mind. Why am I doing this? She realized she'd been keeping up these friendships not because they brought her joy anymore, but because she felt she should. That morning, Helen made a choice. She politely declined her next 3 invitations. She turned her phone off for an afternoon. She went for a walk in the drizzle with no destination in mind. What happened next surprised her. In that quiet space, she felt lighter. There was no guilt, no obligation, just her, breathing deeply and enjoying the moment. The friendships that remained, just a few, felt more meaningful, because she truly wanted them. The rest, she let them drift away, with gratitude but no regret. Helen's story speaks to something powerful. After 70, you no longer need to prove yourself to anyone. When we were younger, friendships often came with a certain pressure. We wanted to fit in, to be liked, to keep up. There was always that unspoken sense of measuring ourselves by how many people surrounded us. But now, you've earned the right to live by your own compass. You've built your life, your values, your memories. What others think of you no longer defines your worth, and thank goodness for that. You don't need to collect friendships like trophies. You are enough, exactly as you are. Think about Harold, a retired executive I met last year. He spent decades climbing the corporate ladder, always attending networking events and cocktail hours. His phone was filled with contacts. But when Harold retired, most of those so-called friendships faded. At first, he scrambled to keep them alive, sending emails, arranging lunches, but eventually, he asked himself, why? Many of those relationships were transactional, not heartfelt. Harold began investing that time in woodworking, reading old classics, and reconnecting with a cousin he truly loved spending time with. The change was remarkable. I feel freer now than I ever did during my career, Harold told me, and that's something many of us discover. When we release the need to maintain friendships out of habit or fear, we reclaim time and emotional energy for what really matters. As we reflect on this, another truth often emerges. Peace becomes more valuable than socializing. When we were raising families or building careers, being around people felt essential. The buzz of conversation, the laughter of friends, it was all part of a full life. But now, many find that quiet moments, free of drama and obligation, bring deeper contentment than any crowded room could. I recently spoke with Margaret, a 74-year-old who used to host elaborate holiday dinners. Her table was always full, but over the years, preparing those events became more stressful than joyful. The same conversations repeated. Some guests only came to gossip or complain. One year, Margaret simply chose not to host. Instead, she invited her daughter and 2 closest friends for a simple meal. They shared stories, sipped wine, and lingered over dessert. Margaret told me it was the best holiday she'd had in years. She also began carving out more time for herself, reading in her sunroom, taking nature walks, and listening to classical music. Solitude, she discovered, wasn't loneliness, it was peace. If you've ever felt guilty about declining invitations or pulling back from certain friendships, know this: you're not withdrawing from life. You're embracing a new kind of fulfillment, one where your time is your own, one where you choose connection because it enriches you, not because it's expected. And sometimes, fewer friendships mean fewer disappointments. Many of us have experienced the sting of one-sided relationships, where we call, text, and reach out, but receive little in return. At this stage in life, that kind of imbalance can drain our spirit. Take William, 78. For years, he was the friend who always remembered birthdays, always made the call, but as time passed, he noticed fewer responses. It hurt, until he realized he wasn't the one who had changed. He simply valued genuine connection more than superficial ties. William chose to focus on a few meaningful relationships, and to his surprise, he felt more content and less lonely than when he was chasing dozens of friendships. As we think about all of this, remember, choosing simplicity over complexity is not selfish. It's wise. You've earned the freedom to prioritize what truly matters to you. And if that means fewer social obligations and more moments of quiet joy, that is a beautiful thing. Now, let's continue this conversation. There's so much more to explore about how embracing independence can bring even greater happiness after 70. But for now, take a moment, breathe, ask yourself, what friendships truly bring me joy? And where might I give myself permission to let go? When we begin giving ourselves permission to step back from relationships that no longer serve us, something remarkable happens. We start noticing how precious our time really is. After 70, time begins to feel like a gift, one that is far too valuable to waste on empty conversations or social obligations that leave us drained instead of fulfilled. I remember a conversation I had with Richard, an 82-year-old man from Houston. Richard used to have what some might call an active social life. His calendar was packed with dinner parties, club meetings, and hours-long phone calls. It looked like a vibrant life. But beneath it all, Richard felt worn out. One afternoon, he confided in me. He said, "I realized I was spending more time talking about books than actually reading them." His shelves were lined with novels, memoirs, biographies, beautiful stories waiting to be explored. But somehow, between the social gatherings and keeping up appearances, he never had the time. That realization hit him hard. So, Richard did something bold. He cleared his calendar. He politely declined dinner invitations and club meetings. Without guilt, he sat in his cozy chair by the window, opened a dusty novel, and lost himself in the pages. Day by day, hour by hour, he reclaimed his time. Richard told me later, that first afternoon of uninterrupted reading, I felt younger than I had in years. It wasn't just about the books. It was about finally honoring what truly brought him joy. Now, this doesn't mean you need to clear your entire schedule or stop seeing everyone. It simply means asking yourself, is this how I want to spend my time? After all, every hour is a treasure, and you deserve to use it in ways that light you up. This brings us to a gentle but powerful truth. The best companionship often comes from within. We spend much of our lives being taught that happiness comes from others, from building large circles of friends, from attending every event, from staying constantly connected. But there is a quiet, profound joy that comes from learning to be your own best company. Let me tell you about Eleanor. At 76, she was always making plans. Coffee dates, church outings, volunteer events, you name it. She was there. On the surface, Eleanor seemed the epitome of an active, fulfilled elder, but inside, she often felt exhausted, even lonely in the middle of a crowd. One day, after a particularly draining week of social commitments, Eleanor sat down and asked herself, when was the last time I did something just for me? She couldn't remember, so she made a small change. The next time she wanted a bit of company, instead of picking up the phone, she picked up a book and went to her favorite cafe alone. She ordered her coffee, opened her book, and for the first time in a long while, felt completely at peace. No small talk, no need to perform, just herself, her thoughts, and a world of stories. That simple experience became a turning point. Eleanor began spending more time alone, not out of loneliness, but out of choice. She started going on long walks through her neighborhood, visiting art museums by herself, journaling at the park, and something wonderful happened. She stopped feeling empty in solitude. Instead, she found it rich, even joyful. When we become comfortable in our own company, we unlock a kind of freedom that many never experience. We no longer need external distractions to feel whole. We no longer seek validation from others to feel worthy. We discover that the quiet moments, the ones spent with ourselves, can be the most nourishing of all. And here's the beautiful part. When you cultivate this inner companionship, you naturally attract relationships that are genuine and effortless. You no longer chase connections out of fear of being alone. Instead, the right people, those who bring peace rather than pressure, find their way to you. This happened to William, the friend I mentioned earlier. After letting go of several one-sided relationships, he noticed a shift. The few friendships that remained were richer, deeper. They didn't require constant maintenance. There was space and grace in those connections. I remember him telling me, "It's funny, I thought I'd feel lonely when I let go. But now, every call or visit feels like a true gift, not a chore." That's the kind of companionship we all deserve, relationships that nourish, not drain. And when you give yourself permission to release old expectations about friendship, you create space for new passions to bloom. I've seen so many elders embrace this with joy. Take James, for example. After years of maintaining a packed social calendar, he realized that many of his interactions were driven by habit, not happiness. So he made a change. He started learning Spanish, a dream he'd carried since childhood. At first, he worried, "Won't people think I'm isolating myself?" But the more he practiced, the more alive he felt. Learning gave James a renewed sense of purpose. He began attending language meetups when he wanted to, not out of obligation, but out of genuine interest. He even volunteered to teach basic Spanish to children at the local library. His world expanded, not through forced friendships, but through curiosity and passion. Stories like James's, Eleanor's, Richard's, and William's remind us that life after 70 is not about filling your calendar. It's about filling your heart. The friendships you choose to keep, the passions you choose to pursue, the quiet moments you embrace, all of these create a life of deeper fulfillment. If anything we've shared today resonates with you, if you've ever felt the pull to simplify your social life, to reclaim your time, to nurture your own companionship, I encourage you to listen to that pull. Trust it, you've earned the right to craft a life that feels true to you. And if you feel moved, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. Your story might inspire someone else on this path. You never know whose heart you'll touch. Let's keep going. There is still so much more to explore about how choosing independence can open the door to even greater joy and freedom. But for now, take a breath, look around, and remember, this moment, this choice, this time, it's yours. The more we step into this space of independence, the more we realize that life after 70 is not about how many people we surround ourselves with. It's about how fully we live each moment we're given. When we were younger, so much of life seemed to revolve around being seen and connected. We wanted to be liked, included, remembered, and for a time, that mattered. But as the years pass, something shifts. We begin to value a different kind of wealth, the kind that can't be measured in numbers of friends or invitations, but in moments of peace, freedom, and joy. I think of George, a 75-year-old veteran from Phoenix. For years, he believed that staying socially active was the key to a good retirement. He joined veterans associations, poker nights, even a model airplane club. It filled his calendar, but not his heart. After his wife Lydia passed, he noticed that many of these gatherings left him feeling lonelier than before. One evening after poker night, he came home and sat in silence. The noise of the evening still rang in his ears, but his heart felt empty. He asked himself, "Why am I still doing this?" That question became a turning point. George stopped forcing himself to show up just to stay busy. He remembered his love of chess, a passion he shared with his father decades ago. Tentatively, he started volunteering at the library, teaching chess to children. To his surprise, those sessions became the highlight of his week. "I thought I needed to stay busy to be happy," he told me later, "but what I really needed was to do something that mattered to me." George's story mirrors what so many others have found. When we let go of activities that no longer serve us, we create space for passions and connections that truly do. Mary, 82, a choir singer from Ohio, had a similar awakening. For years, singing in her church choir was central to her life. But gradually, the rehearsals felt more demanding, the early mornings more exhausting. The joy she once felt was replaced by a quiet dread. One Sunday, after forcing herself through yet another performance, Mary sat alone and asked, "Am I doing this because I love it? Or because I feel I must?" That question opened a door. She stepped away from the choir. In the space that followed, Mary rediscovered her love of songwriting. She began writing simple songs for her grandchildren, recording them at home and sending them as gifts. Her family's reactions were priceless. They played those songs over and over, treasuring each one. In letting go of one role, Mary had created a new and beautiful way to connect. These stories remind us that when we release old expectations, we often find new forms of expression and joy. Letting go isn't about loss, it's about making room for something more authentic. This freedom is one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves after 70. We no longer have to fill every moment or please every person. We can choose how we spend our time, and with whom. Helen, who began taking quiet morning walks instead of attending constant social events, told me that those walks became sacred. For the first time in years, I felt present. She said, "I wasn't thinking about what to say or how to be seen. I was just there." That sense of presence, of living in alignment with our true selves, is what makes life after 70 so rich when we embrace this path. William, after narrowing his circle of friends, noticed the same transformation. He no longer felt obligated to keep up appearances. Now, he shared, "When I do meet with someone, it's because I truly want to. And that makes all the difference." There's also the beauty of curiosity, something we sometimes neglect when life gets too full. James, who began learning Spanish, told me that the experience awakened a joy he hadn't felt in decades. It wasn't about mastering the language, it was about feeling alive again. And that's the heart of this journey. When we let go of friendships or obligations that no longer align with us, we make space for passions, for creativity, for deeper relationships, and for peace. It's not always easy. Saying no, stepping away from long-standing routines, these choices can feel uncomfortable at first. But time and again, I've seen that those who trust this path find not emptiness, but fulfillment. They discover that solitude can be sweet, that fewer, deeper connections matter more than many shallow ones, that curiosity and joy can bloom in ways we never imagined when life was too crowded. And the best part? It's never too late. Whether you're 70, 75, 80 or beyond, you can begin choosing what truly serves you today. So as we continue on this path together, I invite you to pause and reflect. What am I holding onto out of habit? What would I release if I trusted myself more? And what might bloom in the space I create? Because here's the truth. You deserve a life that feels aligned with your heart. A life that honors who you are now, and you have the wisdom to shape it. As we walk further along this path of choosing simplicity and independence, something else begins to unfold, a deeper appreciation for time itself. Time after 70 becomes more than just hours and days. It becomes a precious currency. And when we free ourselves from the need to please everyone or maintain every old connection, we begin to spend that currency more wisely. I recently spoke with Richard again, the gentleman who cleared his schedule so he could return to reading. He told me something that stayed with me. Every hour I spend now feels like a gift, and I don't give that gift away lightly. There's a kind of wisdom in that. Too often in the past, we gave away our time because it seemed endless, or because we were afraid of saying no. But now, every moment matters more, and what we do with those moments can shape not just our days, but our sense of meaning. I think of Carol, a woman I met in Vermont. For years, she had attended every neighborhood potluck, every committee meeting, every invitation that came her way. "I didn't want to disappoint anyone," she said, "but after a while, I started to feel invisible in my own life." One evening, after yet another exhausting gathering, Carol came home and asked herself, "What if I just stopped?" It was a scary thought, the idea of stepping back. But she did. She politely declined the next few invites. Then spent that time working on something she'd long dreamed of, a small memoir of her family's history. As the weeks turned into months, Carol found herself writing every morning, sipping tea by the window. She told me, "For the first time in years, I feel connected to something deeper." That's what happens when we reclaim our time. We reconnect not only with what we love, but with who we are. And often, we discover that the simplest moments are the richest. I remember a conversation with Margaret, who had simplified her holidays. "Now," she said, "the best part of my week is sitting with a cup of tea, watching the birds outside my window." It might sound small, but it's not. These moments of presence, of true presence, can bring a joy far greater than any crowded room ever could. Another woman I met, Anna, found this same truth through nature. After stepping back from a busy social life, she began taking long walks in a nearby forest. "I thought I'd feel lonely," she shared, "but instead, I felt alive." She described how each walk became a meditation, noticing the play of sunlight through the trees, the crunch of leaves underfoot, the rhythm of her own breath. "The forest became my friend," she said with a smile. And that's the heart of it. When we create space in our lives, we find new forms of companionship, not only with others, but with ourselves and with the world around us. This is something I encourage everyone to explore. What brings you that sense of presence? Where do you feel most connected, not to others' expectations, but to your own spirit? Sometimes it's in nature. Sometimes it's through a hobby, like painting, reading, or learning something new. Sometimes it's simply in the quiet of your own home, listening to music or sitting with your thoughts. The beauty is that there's no one right way. The key is to listen to yourself, to what feels nourishing, what fills your heart rather than drains it. And here's something else that happens when we live this way. The relationships that remain in our lives become richer, more authentic. When we stop spreading ourselves thin, when we release the pressure to maintain shallow connections, we have more to give to the relationships that truly matter. William told me this recently. "Now when I spend time with a friend or family member, it's because I want to, not because I feel I have to." And that makes every moment sweeter. That's a powerful shift, and it's one that can bring a deep sense of peace. Because ultimately, what we're seeking in this stage of life is not noise, but meaning, not busyness, but depth, not a crowd, but a circle, even if that circle is just yourself and a few kindred spirits. And perhaps most importantly, this path invites us to embrace a new relationship, the one we have with ourselves. Eleanor discovered this as she began spending more time alone by choice. She told me that at first, the silence felt strange, but over time, she began to relish it. "I started talking to myself," she laughed, "not out loud, but in my heart. I asked myself what I wanted, what I needed, and I listened." That practice changed her life. She no longer feared being alone. In fact, she welcomed it, because in those moments, she reconnected with her own voice, a voice that had too often been drowned out by the noise of social obligations. You have that same opportunity. Every day is a chance to listen to yourself more deeply, to honor what your heart truly longs for. And if that means choosing fewer friendships, simpler routines, more quiet moments, trust that choice. It's not selfish. It's not isolation. It's self-respect. It's wisdom. It's freedom. As we continue walking this path, I invite you to reflect gently. Where in your life might you create more space? What small changes could you make to reclaim your time, your energy, your peace? And most of all, how might you cultivate a deeper friendship with yourself, the kind that will carry you through every season with grace and joy? You have the wisdom to know the answers, and you have the courage to honor them. As we continue walking this path together, I hope you're beginning to feel something shift, not just in how you think about friendships or time, but in how you view this season of life. Because the truth is, life after 70 holds an incredible freedom. You've spent decades giving, building, caring, showing up, and now, you are allowed to choose. You are allowed to shape your days in a way that feels right for you, not for anyone else. And what I've seen, again and again, is that when people embrace this freedom, their lives often become richer, not emptier. George found it in teaching chess. Mary found it in writing songs. Carol found it in painting and writing her family's history. Helen found it in morning walks. Margaret found it in quiet holiday afternoons. These are not small things. They are the essence of a life well lived, moments where your heart feels light, where your spirit feels connected to something deeper. And when we choose to live this way, to honor our own rhythm, to release what no longer fits, we send a powerful message. Not only to ourselves, but to those around us, that it is okay to live with intention. That it is okay to prioritize peace over pressure, meaning over busyness. If there is one thing I hope you carry with you from our time together, it is this: your worth has never been defined by how many friends you have or how full your calendar is. It is defined by the depth with which you live each moment, by the kindness you offer yourself, by the joy you create in your own life. You are enough, exactly as you are, whether you choose to spend more time alone or with a few cherished loved ones. Whether you explore new passions or simply savor quiet mornings. Know this: every choice you make that honors your true self is a beautiful, worthy choice. And as you move forward, I invite you to give yourself permission to let go, to simplify, to rest, to explore, permission to craft a life that reflects who you are now, not who you once were or who others expect you to be. Because this chapter of life is yours, and it can be as vibrant, as joyful, as peaceful as you choose to make it. I also want to remind you, you are not alone on this journey. There are so many of us walking this path, learning to embrace independence and live with greater meaning. And if today's conversation resonated with you, if it sparked reflection, or comfort, or hope, I would love to hear your thoughts. Please feel free to share your story in the comments below. Your voice matters, and your experience might be the encouragement someone else needs right now. And if you'd like to continue walking this path with us, exploring how to live vibrantly, with wisdom and joy, at every age, I warmly invite you to subscribe to Vibrant Elders. We're a community that honors the beauty of aging, and we'd love to have you with us. Above all, as you move through your days, may you do so with a heart that is light, with a spirit that is free, and with the quiet knowing that this life, your life, is a precious gift. One to be lived fully, on your own terms. Thank you for being here with me today. Keep shining, keep choosing joy, and keep living a life that is truly your own.